break down asymmetrical warfare, what we're facing, and then go past asymmetrical warfare, because you know in your video you didn't get to that part. What's behind it? Because I know you've really got a handle on this with yourself and your experts and your connections inside Homeland Security. What's the big end game? Because from my perspective, this is only the detonator to bring in waves that dwarf what we've already seen, collapse the Western states, bringing in federalization. This could be the crisis Obama uses to bring in an executive dictatorship, which he's now basically already operating under. Mr. Taylor.
Well, if you'll go to The Art of War by Sun Tzu, talking about attack by stratagem, he says, in the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not good. It is better to recapture an army entire than to destroy it, to capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy it. And supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. So what the enemy is doing is they're looking at the weaknesses in America. The weakness is in our immigration laws being not enforced, and some of the provisions of the immigration law, such as the Refugee Assistance Program, that does not have the necessary safeguards on it. This is why the President of the United States keeps trying to designate these people that are coming in this Central American surge as refugees, but they don't come under the definition of refugee. Plainly, this is a foreign invasion. It is nothing else, but it is a contrived invasion by this administration, and we've seen this building for several years. We know that starting 18 months prior to April of 2014, they were screening these Central Americans that were increasingly coming into the United States, in California. This is where the screening took place. And they found that 90% of these were ages approximately 13, 14 to 18, single males, working age, and they were coming here to get amnesty that Obama had promised them in the prospective date of August of 2014. None of them were claiming to be fleeing violence or oppression or poverty. The same thing was found in the captive group that was interviewed in South Texas in the interim between May and the middle of July of this year. So the claim by the administration that these people are eligible for refugee status is false.
And, of course, the UN has been saying they're refugees, and we've confirmed that there are UN advisors basically giving Obama, he believes, the legal cover for this treason.
Well, also the consul generals of the three countries involved have said that the reason for the mass migration is misinformation delivered to their people in the home country. Well, that misinformation is that the president will welcome them to come up here. And part of it is direct and part of it is indirect. The indirect part is DACA, where he said anybody that's here under the age of 31 that arrived as a child, with or without knowledge, would be granted some kind of status. Well, all you have to do is apply online, and there's no safeguards or checks for it. Well, pretty soon that gets back to the home country.
And the numbers are increasing. Do you have any estimate, because we know they're whitewashing the numbers, on how big the influx is? We're seeing in the Tucson sector 137,000 in just a few months, according to the sheriff there. I mean, clearly these numbers are much bigger. And how big will the next wave be?
Well, predictions are predictions. They suspected that this first wave would be 65,000, which is evidenced by the fact in January they let a contract for that number of unaccompanied minors. But, Alex, what you've got to remember is that the unaccompanied minors only reflect about 17% of what's coming through.
That's right.
Okay. So we're not talking about 57,000 people. We're talking about 300,000. only 13%, or the 57,000, is unaccompanied minors. The problem with the unaccompanied minors is we have knowledge that for about 3 years that Los Zetas and other transnational criminals have been recruiting and training these minors as young as 8 years of age in their home country to do cartel and transnational criminal work inside the United States. One of the functions is that of an assassin. And they would not be representing, paying for, and bringing these people into the United States and embedding them in their cartel organization if they were not proven assassins.
By the way, Salon and other White House-connected groups have made jokes about this when I've talked about it and others. But it's on record in Mexico. They've got assassins as young as 12. Historically, it's well known about child soldiers. And it just shows the total yuppie ignorance of so-called liberals out there to make jokes about this. Or maybe it's worse than that. Because I don't know how they think they're going to get away with the kidnappings exploding, the crime exploding, and the Democratic Party being directly behind all this. What is their end game? Because I know you cover just facts, sir. Again, Zach Taylor, head of the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers. But you talk about asymmetrical warfare. What is the end game? You know, you say the enemy is doing this. Well, it's the federal government seized by the globalist that is pulling it. So, A, who is the enemy? What is the master game? Where do you see it going?
Well, in politics, as in manifestations leading up to war, it's always about money and power and the interaction between the two. What we are seeing from the immigration point of view is that this has been a protracted conflict in Washington, D.C., basically open borders, basically closed borders. The open borders people want more and more illegal immigration, and Congressman Luis Gutierrez pretty well framed it the other day, this week, when he said that it is to get more people in here to vote Democrat. Well, that shows a quest for power. But we know from the way our Congress works that money is the lubricant that makes the political system run. So if they've got more power, then more money can flow to them to exercise that power. The closed borders or border security group understands the threat by diluting, or rather the attack on what makes America America. Now, let me explain that. The immigration laws are designed to principally do only two things: protect national security and public safety. National security, the basis of it, is American jobs and the American economy, because the strength of that is what makes America what is America, and the American family depends on that for their livelihood through gainful employment and the free enterprise system.
And if you undermine that with a bunch of people that are going to go on welfare and politically vote for more socialism, you have checkmated and used the voting system to basically bring in a bureaucratic dictatorship.
At least neutralize the status quo.
Yeah.
So then you go to the public safety side of it, which includes public health. And you have a situation, for instance, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, historically, I think it was last year, 86% of the warrants for first-degree murder issued in Bernalillo County were for illegal aliens. In Phoenix, Arizona, or rather Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona, 83% of the warrants for murder were issued to illegal aliens. So the public safety end of the threat of them just being present here is already obvious. Then you take the public health side of it. Now, this is where we should be very concerned, because the way the laws exist across the country about public health allows such things as quarantines, allows such things as legal intervention against people thought to be or showing symptoms of a certain disease. When I saw U.S. Public Health Service, Center for Disease Control, Health and Human Services, and the United States military all involved at the border in Texas I've never heard of that before. Nobody in my group's ever heard of that before. It's never happened. So who was really in charge? Because this became from the very beginning, what we call a controlled or a closed event. We don't know what diseases they were quarantining people for. We don't know what diseases they were diagnosing. We don't know what they did, if anything, with those people. Now, just through little bits and pieces of information, we did find out that aliens were being shipped or flown out of the Rio Grande Valley that were obviously ill, but were not medically screened. All of these things point to the ability for this to become a tremendous national disaster on epic proportions with no real knowledge of who's running the operation.
And let me just stop you there, because it sets the precedent. I'm literally getting chills. It sets the precedent that Obama and the bureaucracy and the Ford Foundation people can just order the Border Patrol to do whatever they want, violate laws, ship people wherever they want, violate quarantine laws, ship people with TB wherever they want, drug-resistant TB, black plague showing up, and then just keep it quiet. So they're using the crisis itself and claiming they're coming to help with the crisis as a way to circumvent the laws, shut down the Border Patrol, and basically set up a secretive national security state on the border that's actually designed to destroy national security. I mean, this is open sedition. This is rebellion. This is vandalizing the country. This is sabotage, sir. I mean, am I wrong using those terms?
Well, we have markers that indicate that something like that's likely. Now, among those, on July the 10th of this year, Jay Johnson was in front of the Appropriations Committee of the United States Senate. And he testified that none of these people would be sent to a jurisdiction, a location, a town, a county, or whatever, without prior consultation with the people affected and their elected officials. Well, that patently is not happening. And so what they did was, instead of shipping those people out so they arrive at the destination at 10 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're arriving sometime between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning where they're not being seen, and they just sort of magically appear at these locations. So obviously what Mr. Johnson says is completely contrary to what practice is. And so in watching what this particular administration is doing, it seems that more likely they're doing the opposite of what they say they are.
Well, we've confirmed it. We got this a month and a half ago, the footage of the buses coming in. They give them the vouchers, load them on the buses, send them wherever they want to go, men, women, children, it doesn't matter, women with children. And this is the Border Patrol completing the smuggling process. So overnight, they have turned the Border Patrol from the ineffective strategies they had so people could come through under Obama to now having them be the illegal alien and diseased alien importation agency, and they have them compromised, violating federal law under executive command to frustrate and to smuggle them under cover of darkness so the media doesn't see it. I mean, this is organized crime.
Well, it certainly appears that way. But let me take this another step. The Border Patrol actually, when we're talking about Texas, is they're more of collecting them as they come across the border. And
they hand them off.
Well, they're basically responsible for doing the basic processing. So if they have someone that is obviously ill, let's say the agent catches them on the river levee south of Mission, Texas. And he looks at these people and says, maybe the guy's throwing up, or he's obviously feverish, or the female or the child or whatever. And he calls for transport, and he says, this one's going to need a medical mask. Well, obviously that person's ill. And the agent is telling whoever's coming to pick them up to take them to be processed that they need to take